Welcome to video 6. This covers the topic of what has to be done before you file bankruptcy. Getting ready to file, you're going to want to gather up all of your income documents. That means taxes for the last 2 years, pay stubs for the last 60 days, bank statements for the last 60 days. And by the way, that's a starting point. It is possible that the court and the trustee could say, well, we want to see more. We want to see 90 days, or we want to see the last year. This could really be applicable if you're a small business owner and they say, well, we want to see a profit and loss, or we want to see the business accounts too. We want to see other things. So this is a good basis to start with, but don't think that, hey, I've provided everything, don't ask me for more, because that's unrealistic. Also, you want to try and sit down and take a catalog of all your debts. Now, most good bankruptcy lawyers will pull your credit. So they're going to have a credit report, but there's creditors that don't report to the credit bureaus. I mean, there are things out there that could be hanging around, and you want to make sure that everything's covered. So try as hard as you can. And there's aspects of the law that cover you if you did your level best to try and notify everyone, and somebody by chance got left out and weren't notified of the bankruptcy filing. This is a theme that's going to come up a lot in these videos. Find a good lawyer, okay? Getting ready to file, that's part of the process. You want to make sure you have somebody, and my advice is find somebody who's pro-consumer. There are lawyers out there who are what I consider kind of a mill. They just want to turn the numbers through and make the process as efficient as possible, spend as little time on each case so that they are making a more lucrative per hour fee, okay? That's probably not who you want to go to unless you think that cheaper's better and you just want in and out as quick as possible. And if you don't have a complex case, maybe that's right for you, but I don't highly recommend it. Get credit counseling. This is a pre-filing requirement, okay? It's required by law, but it's also a good idea. You should do it, okay? Obviously, there's been a problem, and I'm not saying that you're in bankruptcy just because you're a slouch or a poor debt manager, but still, they have good concepts and good advice that all of us can use. Now, here's something that I have to approach a little bit carefully because I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. But you're going to want to talk to the lawyer that you finally end up working with about who to pay and who not to. And this is important, an important strategy to the overall bankruptcy, because the last thing you want is to be, if you're sitting there saying, well, how do I pay for the bankruptcy? I'm bankrupt, I'm broke, how do I pay this lawyer? Well, if you're giving your car back, don't go make your car payment. That doesn't make any sense, okay? Get in, pool your resources, see what you have available, see what you have to pay, and don't pay the rest of the stuff because you're handling it in the bankruptcy, and then make sure that your lawyer gets compensated for their time because they're obviously helping you. Okay. Now it brings me to the next subject, which also has to be approached a little bit cautiously, and that's pre-planning. Okay? Pre-planning before a bankruptcy is all about what's legal, lawful, and ethical, and it's never about committing fraud or trying to hide things. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Okay? Use the bankruptcy laws to your advantage according to what's legal and lawful, but don't try to find ways to game the system, because I promise you one thing. Trustees and bankruptcy judges are trained to look for signs of abuse, and probably the harebrained scheme that you might have come up with has already been tried, they've already thought of it, and they already know how to look for it. Okay, so this could mean loss of assets or worse, even jail time. Okay, don't try to game the bankruptcy system. It's just not worth it. And finally, pre-planning, it bears mentioning, again, as I mentioned earlier, knowing who to pay and who not to pay. Okay, that's an important aspect of planning your bankruptcy. Now, one other thing that we talked about before you file is the credit counseling, and I want to give you just a word on credit counseling. Some companies are great and others not so much. There are very reputable companies out there, and there are some straight up scams. And in particular, I want to talk about CCC, or Consumer Credit Counseling type companies. Okay, these are the ones that say avoid bankruptcy, don't go file, we'll help you. You make a payment to them and then they pay all of your creditors. Well, guess what? Here's the dirty little secret on consumer credit counseling programs. All of your creditors that are now being paid through that program are going to start reporting to the Bureau that you are in a repayment plan. And guess what the credit bureau thinks of repayment plans? It does to your score exactly what a Chapter 13 bankruptcy would do to your score. So have you gained anything by going through this other non-legal type of solution? I would say no. Most people do it to try and avoid the damage to their credit, but they end up getting the damage to their credit anyways. So tread carefully when you're looking at those types of programs. More often than not, I think bankruptcy is a better solution because it not only gives you the flexibility of creating payment plans, the creditors are compelled to enter into those agreements. In the CCC programs, guess what? They're not. They can at any time pull out of the agreement. They can go, we're done doing that. We don't want to. It's not equitable or whatever. In a bankruptcy, they have to comply because the law is forcing them to. And furthermore, if they try to do anything inside the bankruptcy, you're protected by federal law. You have the full authority of the bankruptcy court protecting you, and in a CCC, you have nothing. So for what it's worth, that's my advice on consumer credit counseling. And then look for a friend or a group or a nonprofit agency that offers some counseling, some good advice, maybe a course, some booklets and manuals and things you can do with a spouse, even with your kids. I think it's a tremendous idea, if you're in this position, to involve your children. You may not have to say, hey, guess what, mom and dad are bankrupt, but you could say, hey, you know what? We've learned some really important things, and I think it's important for you guys to understand X, Y, and Z. So, for what it's worth.